if that was actually like a jet airplane because we're flying right in here at the first second, or like winds, and now I get it.
Oh, yeah, no. Hurricanes are coming, and I have to make sure that I talk to Adam Talley today, and I have got to get flood insurance. I got to get wind damage insurance. I got to get it all today.
Good luck with that.
Yeah. Well, flood, you got to wait 30 days, Pat.
I did not know that.
Hey, we're not in any warnings right now, though.
We've been talking about that for a while.
Yeah.
I heard there were rumors that South Tampa and West Chase, they were going to get 20-foot sea level or something on this. Someone said.
That's a great question for Leo, although that seems highly inaccurate.
I'm not commenting on any of that.
It's not going to be that strong of a hurricane. So what ends up happening is if we take these storms that don't have names, and we
First of all, hold on. This is Tampa Home Talk.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Thanks for joining us.
Adam Talley, Leo Kane, Katrina Madewell.
And
the whole team.
if it's your first time ever joining us, we apologize. And if you're coming back, thank you for listening because you already know who we are.
I was just about to monologue about a hurricane.
Now you can do it.
And
That's
away
why we
you
played the
go.
whole intro. We had the intro for the show that said all that.
Yeah.
Well, they still need to know who they're talking to because sometimes the same intro rolls in and Katrina's not actually here, right?
Well, which is probably 75% of the time.
That's not true. That is not true.
That's true for Adam Talley.
Well, maybe Adam.
that's true.
We can pick on Adam this morning.
Can I monologue or not?
Yes, it's all you, Leo. Take it away.
Okay, but we basically have going in the Gulf right now, and in the Atlantic is a bunch of storms. So right now we have storm number 14, which is right near Mexico's Yucatan Peninsula. We have storm number 13.
Wait, say that again.
Yucatan Peninsula.
There you go.
We have storm number 13, which is east of Puerto Rico. We had storm number 12 that went up the east side of Florida. So basically with the storm that's west of Florida and the storm that just went east of Florida, it's actually going to track storm 13, which is the one we're watching, into Florida. Because these storms like to avoid the cooler waters. They like to avoid where other storms have just been. So it's actually those other two storms are going to push 13 into Florida.
So what's the scientific reason behind the storm not wanting to be where another storm has been? How does it even know?
Hurricanes are big cooling engines.
Okay.
So the worse that quote-unquote climate change gets, the worse these storms are going to get to cool the earth. So they're going to want to go over the warm water. Hence, they're going to want to avoid where another big cooling engine has just been. Because if you think about a hurricane, what it does is it just collects water and throws it way up into the air. And everyone knows from their high school science that air gets colder as you go further up in the atmosphere.
I always partnered up with somebody like you. I'm just saying.
Well, it's a basic...
Not lying.
So where do you think it will hit?
Well, you have to take all 5-day forecasts with a grain of salt because they always show the 5-day forecast saying it's going to hit Tampa, which was amazing because Isaiah, if you remember back to that one was supposed to hit Tampa, and that didn't even hit the east coast of Florida.
I never felt like that was going to hit Tampa.
Well,
I feel like that one muddling down where all the models are showing right up the peninsula. I think that one's going to hit somewhere close.
Well, what they were showing, which was kind of neat with this storm, was the 5-day forecast showed it doing what Charlie did, and that curves back into the state after it goes into the Gulf. Mm-hmm. Now the model is going to be more realistic. It is going to impact Tampa, but it's not going to hit Tampa. It's going to hit further south, but it's not going to curve back into Florida. It's just going to keep going. So Monday evening, things will deteriorate rapidly. Tuesday, I've already told staff on Tuesday that pretty much move everything that's on the schedule. Tuesday is going to be a pretty ugly day here in Tampa.
Oh, yeah. We've got an inspection with you Tuesday, actually.
Oh, that one will be moved.
Can you move mine first, please?
Yeah.
Since we found out about it first.
Unfortunately, yeah, we're having to move all the inspections, but that's why I'm keeping an eye on 13, because I've said before in the studio that anytime a storm tracks north of Cuba, we don't have to worry about it here in Tampa. It's always going to hit the jet stream, and it's always going to move up. Here, it's not able to hit the jet stream and move up, which would be north, because Storm 12 has cooled all that water temporarily. So that's why this storm is going to track south. So this would be the exception to if a storm comes off Africa, is north of Cuba, it doesn't hit us. Now, that's completely different on the Gulf side. Now,
so south of Cuba, you think we have a better chance of being hit?
If it's south of Cuba, it's going to hit the Gulf Stream and move north into Florida. That it's just one of those hooks that it does.
That's interesting. I'm gonna have to do a little hurricane history.
Now, do you think with if it goes over Cuba and we'll lose some how strong do you think we're looking at? I guess is my question, because I know when it hits Cuba, they have mountains and it really.
Well, it's north of Cuba. It's not going to hit Cuba.
Oh, okay.
I mean, you will get some wind shear that will impact it. Mm-hmm. What's basically going to happen is the storm's going to be like. You're also dealing with something called rapid intensification. Mm-hmm. And that's a term they've been throwing around a lot in the last couple of years. With the storm, when it gets close to land, rapid intensification is just what it sounds like.
Mm-hmm.
Because the water is super warm in it.
It gets strong really fast. So the storm starts to compress. So it starts to consolidate. When it consolidates, the winds get stronger. So you have stronger winds in a smaller band. See,
that can happen overnight.
Yes. Well, typically not overnight. Typically it would happen during the day. The best time for
it could happen overnight while you're sleeping, depending on when it's rolling in.
Well, no, it's just that storms with the warmer water, storms rapidly intensify during the day, and they tend to weaken at night. So the best case scenario is always for a night landfall for a hurricane, because it's going to be at its weakest in that point of day.
By the way, Katrina would sleep right through it. I'm just saying. I'm that type. I get the house could be burning down, Adam, and I would sleep through it.
Well,
What do you think the winds would be coming through the Bay Area if it's 50 miles off the coast?
I mean, it's going to be a Category 1 hurricane, they say, when it's moving through. They've been pretty inaccurate this year, predicting strengths.
Wildly inaccurate.
About the strengths of the storm. They're always making them sound stronger than they be. And these are warnings.
Than they be. I like it. As the kids say.
You have to think about it. This is a warning system. So, I mean, saying it's going to be a little bit stronger than it really is actually good. Mm-hmm. But if it's going to hit Marco Island, Naples, and then it's going to trek across, I'd be surprised if it was hurricane strength when it was parallel to Tampa midday Tuesday morning. Mm-hmm. So we could be looking at tropical storm force winds, the occasional gust higher. I'm still going to say follow your spaghetti models. Be prepared for hurricane winds. Hurricanes are serious. We take them for granted here in Florida because we have so many of them. Look what Isaias did to Boston, to New York. Mm-hmm. If you're caught off guard from a hurricane, there could be some serious repercussions. Your windows could blow out, your roofs can become damaged. You'll need Sharp Roofing, who's here in the studio, to come out and fix your roof.
Oh, we're going to talk about that. We got a lot to talk about.
But I mean, yeah, so we have a storm. It's going to impact Tampa to some extent. Take it seriously. That's the advice. Make sure your batteries are charged over the weekends. Make sure you know where your flashlights are. Couldn't hurt to have some extra water lying around the house in case you're in a low-lying area where you could get power loss.
That's a good point, Leo, because we're seeing a ton of relocation people here, as we have talked about. Like a lot of these Northeasterners have migrated their way down to Tampa permanently. We just had somebody move from Oregon permanently yesterday, currently looking for a home. And so, for me, like when I think hurricane, I'm really just not freaked out about it because I've always lived here and it just doesn't freak me out. Now, that doesn't mean I don't go get water. That doesn't mean I don't have canned goods. It doesn't mean I don't have flashlights. It doesn't mean I'm sitting right next to my window, right, when a storm rolls through. But I'm not freaked out about it. And so I think there's two things, right, that happen with that. You get people that relocate here and they get really freaked out about it because the news over dramatizes everything, right? Or they make it look worse than it is. And the second thing is once they've been here for a while,
they get desensitized.
And they've heard the news do it so much, and then they're like, oh, yeah, it's no big deal. And then when a storm really does hit, then they're like, oh, this is a big deal. Yeah, I might want to move. Like, we see that sometimes.
Well, the other thing to watch out for, especially if you're in a coastal area, if you're on the beach, if you're near water sources, if this storm goes across the state and it tracks west of Tampa, you're going to end up with pretty big storm surge. See, when we had Irma fly through 3 years ago, it went up the center of the state, and it actually pushed all the water out. So there were scenes back when Irma hit that people were walking in Tampa Bay. It pushed all the water out, because that's because the storm was on to the right of Tampa, and the way with the winds that they circulate,
it sucked all the water out.
It sucked the water out. This is the opposite. It's going to be pushing all the water in. So you will have a storm surge to worry about. I mean, a worst case scenario for Tampa isn't a direct hit. It's 30 miles offshore, because that's where you're going to get all that big storm surge coming in. So your
great point, Leo.
Coastal areas, I'm not going to say evacuate, but those are the areas you got to watch out for the storm surge.
All right, you're listening to Tampa Home Talk. Our off-air number is 813-377-2775. If you want to talk science with Leo, he's always happy to.
Text the word science. Text the word science.
813-377-2775. Stick around. We'll be back in a moment.
Well, good morning. Welcome back to Tampa Home Talk. Hurricane Hour in effect. Oh, you want to talk Katrina wants to talk real estate numbers because this is Tampa Home Talk and not Leo Hurricane Talk.
Well, we're just going to touch on it. And we'll touch on it a little bit next hour, too. And the interesting thing is we would always pull our data kind of off the Florida Realtors information that they provide us. And it's really good information. A lot of charts and graphs, a lot of really detailed info. The challenge is it is just not real time for our market. It is not. And so it's interesting, Leo, because, Mimi handed me this before the show, and I'm like, yeah, we're not going to be able to use that.
No.
You got to come up with something else. But I'll just touch on this to make a point as we go into the numbers. So if you look at this, Leo, second quarter 2020 shows the inventory is down 40%. Okay?
Okay.
And let's just look at this. And really, I kind of wish I'd been tracking numbers pre-COVID, and we're always going to do this. It's never going to go away. But I'm looking at this. Look at the new inventory and the pendings. According to this, we've got a little more inventory than when we start. We're selling a few less homes because we don't have much to sell.
True.
And our pendings have more than doubled. So, looking at this, it's just not an accurate depiction of what's going on. So we're not going to do it. But if you want to look at these amazing stats and you want to see them, and by the way, I can pull them just for your zip code and your area. I can send them to you. Just call or text 813-377-2775. Send me your zip code, put market stats, and I'll know you're looking for the report. 813-377-2775. Again, that's our off-air number, and you can call or text 813-377-2775. Now, the number of new listings this morning is coming in just a little over 1,500, so 1,501. And we are seeing sold properties at 1,540. So we're still selling more properties than we put on the market this week. And our number of pendings, 2,016.
That's a lot.
What does that tell you about supply and demand there, Leo?
Wow. So.
And it's up from last week.
We're running out of supply.
Yes.
So we're still in a seller's market.
We've been in a seller's market for a while, and it's got even tighter. And so, our absorption rate, last I looked at it and calculated, was about a month and a half. And I think we're going to be hitting that 1 month indicator real soon looking at these numbers.
Now, do you think, when they stop all these moratoriums on everything, do you think you'll see a lot of houses go on the market from people that can't afford them anymore? So
let's talk about that because, for one, there's two things we're really seeing right now in the market. One is very sharp, short appraisals. Mm-hmm. I had one yesterday come in almost 25 grand light. Ooh. So I feel like these appraisers are trying to dictate the market, and they can't because buyers are paying the difference in cash regardless of what that appraisal is saying.
Gotcha.
We had the one, remember, that was 200,000. Mm-hmm. Remember when Ray was in the studio? It came in 23 grand light. We got another appraisal. Guess how much it came in light?
20 grand.
2,000.
Really? Wow.
That's my point about an opinion of value. And so when I see some of these, I just want to chew them up and spit them out. And I'm so irritated with appraisers right now, and I love our appraisers, I do, but I don't think I want to see one in the studio for at least a month because I you have to understand, when I have to do an appraisal rebuttal, it takes me 2 hours to do that. It's a lot of data. It's a lot of information. My rebuttal is a full page typed, and if anybody can get a value overturned, it's me. So I just had one that came in $11,000 short, mm-hmm. and the appraiser came up $5,000 on a different property. So, and mind you,
it's pretty good to get them to change their mind because typically they're just
appraisers
pass.
Do not like to change their opinion of value. They do not. So when I come with them with all these facts and figures and I start picking on their adjustments and I start really just digging into their appraisal report, they're like, somebody wrote this and knows what's going on, So they pay more attention to it because if someone's going to write a report that in depth, there's a good chance they can make a complaint to the state. right? So that's kind of the point.
A legal brief.
Well, so they, if there's any justification at all in the rebuttal, sometimes we will see them adjust. Okay. Now, they don't like to. They don't. Once appraisers have their opinion of value, they do not like to be wrong. And I had the same conversation with a customer yesterday. I said, look, you can get 3 appraisers on the same day, even using the same data, the same sales sometimes, and get 3 totally different opinions of value. So that's the thing. Like when you look at somebody like me being your listing agent, I'm worth my weight in gold. I'm worth every dollar you're going to pay me for that reason alone. When I meet the appraiser there and if I have to show up with a rebuttal, not including anything else that's going on in the contract. So that's some of the things that we're seeing. Now, to your question, okay, we should talk about this as well, and we won't spend a lot of time on it, but I am trying to get, like, in my opinion, the best landlord, tenant, attorney, expert in the state back on the show. He's been on before. He lives in Fort Myers, so it's a little trek for him, but he knows the law very, very well. And so Leo alluded to this before, and it's pretty accurate. So depending on the type of mortgage or if you have a mortgage.
Leo is always pretty accurate.
Yep. It's the CARES Act. And so it's too much to cover, like in this segment. But to make a long story short, I've got another property that I listed. The seller owns the property free and clear, so there's no mortgage on it. And the tenant's not paying. And the tenants, for some reason, think that they're covered under the moratorium and they don't have to get out. And it's actually not accurate. So, that will... And the tenant was really nasty, by the way. So I don't know how much he's going to cooperate. It will probably be a forced eviction. But what most people don't realize is those are not easy. And even me, even though I understand that very well, I don't manage property. I only sell real estate. And so when we write our leases, because we do tenant placement, we always use an attorney to do that. And if we're making any type of steps towards an eviction, we follow their advice to a T. Because there's so many tenant loopholes.
And I wonder, I do wonder how it works. So let's say you have a tenant in there, the 12-month lease, very standard. Their lease is about to end. Owner wants to sell the house. Tenant doesn't want to leave. How does that work?
Technically, their contract is only 12 months.
So you can just tell them to get on and get out?
They can give them a notice of non-renewal. They have to give it to them or post it. And then what happens is they tell them when they're going to come back, and they come back for an inspection on that day. And if they're not there, typically they're going to refuse entry. So there's no point in fighting with them, right? With the law, you can, but it doesn't do anything. And then basically at that point, you're going to seek the attorney advice and have them start the eviction process.
How long does that take?
It's a loaded question, right? Especially right now when there's going to be probably quite a backlog of them.
Pre-COVID, how long do you think that something like that would have taken previously?
Could be under 30 days. Could be a couple weeks.
30 days. So if you're trying to sell this house and that's a whole month.
That's a short time frame though for how long it could get. And and I've seen a lot, right? I mean, me personally, I acquired a property with a tenant in it. The people that did the background check for the tenant only checked in one property or one county. They didn't check everywhere for background and stuff. Turned out they had 2 evictions in Hillsborough. The property was in Pasco, and they didn't check everywhere.
You wouldn't check the closest, largest
with the screening that we do. It would have come up. But that's not, I didn't do another one when we acquired the property. Maybe I should have, but I didn't.
It happens.
So she was what we call a professional tenant. So literally I had to hire an attorney to take this all the way to see the judge. That's pretty far, by the way, when it gets to that point.
Expensive too, I'm sure.
Several $1,000s. I mean, it's not cheap. And so, and it's just, and imagine if you're the owner and this is your home, you're like fuming on the inside because this is your money that they're tying up, right? And this is like, for some people, this is part of your cash flow. It's part of your investment. And so, to have it get that far, and then the attorney says, let's just offer them some cash to get out. Knowing what I know, it's really good legal advice, but you don't want to...
Wait, when you give legal advice, you have to say not a lawyer.
No, I'm not an attorney. I'm saying that the attorney gave me that advice, And knowing what I know, I feel like it was good legal advice.
Now, don't you wish he told you that, several $1,000s before we got to that point?
And trust me, if they're not going to move out, they're not going to take it. You could offer them cash for keys, and that is a better way to do it. Say, hey, can I just give you $1,000 or $2,000? Don't worry about your rent this month, and then you vacate on this day. You leave the property in good condition and give me the keys, and we'll call it even, right? You can find a new place, and no harm, no foul. That's the best way to do it.
But they're not going to do that.
It depends. Some of them will, if they're concerned and they know what an eviction can do to their record, trying to rent another place. Some of them...
And evictions don't hurt your credit.
No. You could technically be in the middle of buying a home, and if someone's found an eviction, it will not show up on the reports that we do for a purchase.
That's crazy.
Totally different reports.
That's crazy to me.
Yeah.
Different systems, man.
Totally different reports.
It's kind of like not checking Hillsborough County. You should check a few things.
Yeah, so anyway, this tenant refused the money that we were offering her before we went in to see the judge. And so we went in to see the judge. She told the judge, she pretty much tried to make it sound like I was a slumlord, but that wasn't the truth. She would not let us in. She wouldn't give us access to the property to make a repair that she was complaining about, which they were actually causing. And the reason why she didn't want to let us in was because she had her boyfriend there that wasn't on the lease, and they were smoking pot in the house. So, it happens. We see this kind of stuff.
Could be legally. You could do that legally these days.
Not per our lease. You're not allowed to smoke in the property.
Gotcha.
So I don't care what they do legally, but per our lease agreement, they're not allowed to smoke in the property. Anything. At all.
Wow.
Don't care if it's cigarettes, not allowed to smoke in the property. All right. This is Tampa Home Talk. Enough of the real estate rant. We are going to see the numbers go up. Not right this second, Adam, but in the future. And then when we come back after the break, we're going to get to Wes Edwards with Sharp Roofing, and he's going to have a lot to say with the storms out in the Gulf and what's going on right now in the roofing world. We'll be back in a moment.
Welcome back to Tampa Home Talk. This is Adam Talley with Talley Insurance, joined by my partners in crime.
That's us. That's me, Katrina Madewell.
Hurricane Leo.
Yeah, that's appropriate, I think.
Yeah.
I can feel it in my little bones. Feel the hurricane coming in my bones.
Don't you have an insurance tip to do for all this hurricane mayhem? Apparently, people need a reminder. You got to wait 30 days for flood.
Yes, you have to, unless it's for a loan closing. It has to be a loan closing, not just buying a house.
I forgot about that.
So, if you're buying a house in cash, you still have to wait 30 days.
So get a quick loan.
So if you're a realtor out there that's listening and you have cash buyers, realtor.
What if you use mattress money? What if Hurricane Leo says to use your mattress money to buy a house?
Yeah, what? I'm sorry?
Mattress money.
Mattress money. Yeah, if you're using your mattress money and you want your flood insurance, make sure you get that early in the process.
Yeah. Well, put enough money down, any bank will do it.
That's true. But yeah. So yeah, that's the tip.
And are you still writing insurance policies now, or you got to wait with all that stuff?
I haven't had anything come in yet. I'm assuming I will by the end of the day.
Got it.
Because it's not close enough, and it's still a depression. Okay. So there's no name yet. Once it gets named, we'll probably be starting to shut down. Yeah, it's been a lot. I noticed that. Is it me, Leo, or does it seem like they're a lot more unnamed right now, meaning they're starting off a little smaller, not quite named yet? Rapid intensification. Yeah, I guess that's it. But sometimes, when they're way down, they'll have a name already, and now it's Storm 13, 14.
They don't get names until they actually become a tropical depression or a storm. Technology is getting better.
Which is a certain amount of wind speed, right?
35 miles per hour.
Okay.
Sustained,
yes. At so many feet above sea level. So what ends up happening is now we're getting more advanced, and we have earlier tracking, earlier warning. So it used to be back in the day, you used to see the storm after it got its name because we didn't know about it till then. But now with all this LiDAR and radar and satellite imagery.
LiDAR? I haven't heard of that.
LiDAR? That's a laser-based radar system.
What's the difference?
One uses a
laser.
No.
And the other uses radar.
But I'm saying
radar is basically pinging sound. That's no access sonar. Yeah. Radar is pinging light, and laser is actually shooting a beam.
Got it.
And there's a lot of people, scientists out there cringing right now because my description was way too simplistic.
That's okay.
I think they'll appreciate that. The listeners at home will appreciate the simplicity.
Everybody appreciates simplicity. Who doesn't? I mean, really. Well, unless you're Leo. Yeah, he's Leo. We are going to get to West, but I was looking at our outline for roofing, and we have so much to talk about that I feel like maybe we're going to save that for next hour. Can you hang out with us for a little longer?
You got it.
Okay. I know.
I do like what he said, though. Make sure we touch on that in the next hour when he was talking about,
I ran out real quick, so we'll have to cover that.
Yeah. It was good. It was good.
So I know we're trying to get Sarah Cricky to call in so that she can talk about what she sees, but I mean, some of these rates we're seeing now are obnoxiously low, like literally under 3%.
Like if you haven't refied this year, you need to, right?
Consider it. Highly consider it for sure. And what is she handing me here? TransUnion consumer credit delinquencies fell off in July. That's good.
Does that mean more people got their jobs back?
So mortgage loans and financial hardships declined 6.79%. So that means more people caught up on their mortgage.
That's good.
In June, and July is 6.15. That's really good.
That's good for the economy as a whole.
So if there's any way, we talked about this a little bit on the banks wanting to give you a deal, just pay me later. Don't do it. Catch up.
Yeah. Now, question for you.
And don't wait to call. Like, I see this. I had a young family finally wait to call me, and they're like $20,000 in the hole. Like, call me sooner so we can get your money out of your house. You're just avoiding the inevitable. So our off-air number is 813-377-2775. I know nobody wants to talk about that right if they're behind, but trust me, I'll understand. I've helped a lot of people just like you.
The earlier you catch it, the better you'll be.
Well, we want to put, at the end of the day, think about it like a triage situation, right? Mm-hmm. And the goal is just to stop the bleeding. So if we can stop the bleeding and essentially put together a plan, that's what we're doing. So we're going to stop the lates on the credit, stop the attorney's fees from rolling in and the late charges and all this extra stuff.
Then your credit goes down to like zero, and it
there
takes
is no
forever
such
to
thing
get
as
back.
Zero. Like people say
It's
that.
like an SAT score. You write your name down, you at least get 200 points.
I mean, bad as anything in the fives. I think a handful of time I've seen in the fours. And there's never zero. So what happens is, like, when you hear Dave Ramsey say zero, there's actually not a number there. It's just blank when we pull it. It's just an open, empty space.
Question for you while we're waiting for Sarah to come on. On a lighter note, because we're talking about the rates being super low and people, should consider refining. If you refi your house, what kind of cost are you looking at?
So actually, I just did this yesterday for somebody. Well, it depends. I mean, sometimes we say that at the most, probably no more than 3% of your sales price, right? It's kind of a good estimate. Depending on if there's lender fees, how much they are, if you have to pay for a survey. Like there's a lot of what if. There's different riders that title requires based on the property. So I'm not trying to dance around it, but most homes are going to have at least $3,000 or $4,000, $5,000 in closing costs. Some of those things are fixed expenses. So like your doc stamps on your deed are always 70 cents per thousand. Your doc stamps on your mortgage are always 35 cents per thousand. Your intangible tax is always 0.002, and that's based on the mortgage. So those costs are fixed, as is promulgated for title insurance. So that's fixed as well. That doesn't change.
Pomegranate?
Pomegranate.
Did I say pomegranate? Did I say pomegranate? Promulgated. Really? I said pomegranate?
No, he's messing with
I
you.
heard pomegranate.
I might have said
I
pomegranate.
can't even say realtor, right? So
Realtor.
Realtor.
Got to say it like from Texas.
Realtor.
I didn't make the name. I'm just saying, like, that's how they. Yeah, it's not realtor.
Which is different than a real estate agent.
Yes, it is.
What's the difference?
Leo?
Well, one is.
I know the difference.
One is a member of the National Association of Realtors. And one just has a license.
Which, by the way, they make it almost impossible to be anything but a realtor. So, like, for example, to break it down a little more, Leo, if you're a real estate agent and not a realtor, you have to basically do whatever your broker does. That makes sense. So when you join a real estate office, if they're a member of the state, local and national association of realtors, then basically that's when you have to join the board of realtors as well. If they're not, then you don't. But if you don't join the board of realtors, you're not going to have an E-key to open the box, and you're not going to have access to MLS. So I don't know how you could do your job. It's like being a carpenter without a hammer. Right, Leo? Like even the inspector has an e-key.
Yeah, we use it all the time.
All right, which you have to join the Board of Realtors to get it.
No, you just have to be an affiliate, and then
You're still joining as an affiliate.
But it's joining for me is $50 a year. Joining for you is $1,200.
Yeah.
Well, actually, you're a broker, so what's that like? Yeah,
A couple dollars more.
Yeah, a couple of dollars more.
Handful.
Yeah. People don't realize it's actually expensive to be a realtor, whether you sell one home or 5,000.
Better sell 5,000 then.
All right, so let's go on over to Sarah and get our update for the week. Sarah, are you with us? I think she is.
Good morning.
Oh, yeah, there she is. I hear her cracking around. So, how are you doing? Are you getting any sleep over there, or are you still running around with your hair on fire?
Long days right now, but we're keeping things moving along.
And rates are stellar, aren't they, right now?
Rates are great. Fannie and Freddie did announce this week a loan level price adjustment for refinance transactions to be effective September 1st.
And that means?
We did see, the reaction to that was we did see rates for refinance transactions move a little bit for the worse, but still excellent interest rates right now.
Awesome. And so what else is going on? Still seeing COVID overlays?
Absolutely. Still seeing COVID overlays, having to do the additional steps and documentation to verify self-employed people are still actively engaged in their business right now, and that W-2 people are still actively employed and not furloughed.
The biggest, hardest hit ones we've seen are people in hospitality and restaurants, that kind of stuff. The rest of us feels like they're busy.
Yeah.
Yeah, cleaning businesses, there are a lot of industries that are actually ahead of the game right now and busier than ever. But, it's a blanket overlay, so it applies to everyone. We have to follow the same process for everyone. So that's what I was going to address today was, how to prepare to pre-qualify right now so that your transaction will go as smoothly as possible. I know we have the long list of the do's and don'ts when you're shopping for a home or you're an application for a mortgage, but getting yourself organized up front and getting pre-qualified right now is key to get that stuff reviewed in advance, to overcome any hiccups so that you're not dealing with any fires while you're under contract.
So, Sarah, give the person listening an example of some of the things that you see that you wish we could just control from the beginning.
Communication is key. I've had clients, and you can explain things repeatedly. But I have had clients not lose their job, quit their job, in process, or retire in process for a mortgage. Things that would have a major impact on their approval, large purchases, things like that. We definitely try to counsel clients up front.
Hey, Sarah, real quick. Sorry, I didn't mean to interject, but large purchases, is there a specific number, or is it dependent on the person? What is a large purchase in the eyes of a mortgage company?
It's gonna depend on. It's gonna vary from one client to the next. For a lot of well-established, not their first time buying a home clients, a purchase really has no impact other than the fact that they've opened new credit we can't see. So at that point, we must document it and the new liability. But for a large majority of first-time home buyers, they are just right at their max budget. And
so buying that new refrigerator and financing it could kill your deal.
Going to Lowe's and opening credit for, like Katrina said, for that washer, dryer, refrigerator combo can create a $60 a month payment that literally can tip you over the edge.
Wow.
So it does shift from one client to the next. So when you say large purchase, you think don't run out and buy a BMW, but it could be something as small as furniture.
Yep.
Yeah. And
with no payments or interest for 6 months, guess what? It still counts.
12 months, yeah.
Right?
That doesn't matter. Yeah, that doesn't matter.
That's crazy.
Still counts.
They're they're going to compute a payment even if no payments are due right now. I mean, it's just that's just the way it goes. So, but
all right. Well, hold that thought. Gather it. You're listening to Tampa Home Talk. We got to take a quick break here in a second.
813-377-2775. That's 813-377-2775.
Text big purchase.
We'll be back in a second. Good morning.
Welcome back. Did that pickle comment make it to the day?
I don't know. It might have.
This is a real pickle here on Tampa Home Talk. We're joined by Sarah and Adam.
Text pickle to 813-377-2775.
That probably didn't come through, but now it totally did. So, yeah, that's great.
So I just needed to comment about your pickle comment in case it did come through.
Yeah, I don't think it did, though.
If you find yourself in a real estate
Pat
pickle.
would know whether it did or it didn't.
813-377-2775.
It did not. See, I knew. Pat's got us. Like, he makes sure it's perfect. Always.
Come on. Let's get back to the real stress.
We are. All right, so Sarah.
TM.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the real point that you wanted to make. And we actually saw this with one of our clients we have right now that's getting ready to close. Her closing's been delayed a couple times. Let's share a little bit about that and the point you were trying to make.
Well, it is to just get your documentation in order as much as humanly possible up front so that it's a smoother process while you're under contract. In the case of this particular client, it was a little bit of a layered effect. This person worked for the Hard Rock and was furloughed. I mean, obviously, they were shut down for a while. So, the big corporations use third-party verifications, which are very generic with respect to income and employment, and they don't elaborate on the time they weren't able to earn income. We've got to take extra steps to go to HR to get comments and things verified so that proper averages are taken on income. Income that is disclosed to qualify, if you have other benefits like Social Security or disability, things that are fixed, we have to be able to document. And with COVID, if you can't find a document, these offices are not open for walk-in right now. So you may have to order something that's going to be snail-mailed to you, and it may take 10 days to receive, and you don't want to be doing that when you're under contract to close.
Because they won't fax it. You can't come in.
Yep. I mean, there are things that we take for granted that are just, I can log online, click print. That is not happening right now in a lot of cases. So upfront preparation is a big deal to make sure that we can overcome any issues, especially with COVID, even on W-2 jobs. You may have a very solid work history, but you may have just changed jobs. And, depending on the hours you're working, in a normal environment, 30 days on the job with a continuous work history is not a problem. But with COVID, if your hours look to be variable, it could be a problem, and you may have to be on that job for 6 months. I mean, we try to not go there, but we definitely want to get a grip on it and get it upfront approved, so that when you're shopping, you're not worrying about the small stuff.
And don't change jobs like in the middle of a loan transaction. We see that a lot. Where people all of a sudden just get a better opportunity and they're under contract to buy a home. We're like, just save that opportunity for after you close.
What if they can't?
Right.
I mean, if they're in the same line of work, it's likely not a problem. It's just a lot of extra work for Sarah. Mm-hmm. But if they're changing,
not a problem, and especially if it's a fixed 40-hour week or it's a fixed annual salary. But if we see a new job and 30 days of pay stubs have 20 hours one week, 32 the next, 40 the next,
that's a problem,
variable, and it can be an issue.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So the one that we had, here's the other thing that we see too. Sarah will give them a list of things they need in order to qualify and get everything in order. And somehow they think just ignoring a couple things is going to go away, and it doesn't.
It doesn't go away.
It doesn't.
Yeah, we only ask for what we have to have. I mean, you may need $10,000 to close or $2,000 to close, and you may have 5 bank accounts with more than what's sufficient. We're only going to ask you for the account we need, as an example. We don't want to over-document your file. We don't want to give anything that we don't need to give. But if we're asking you for it, it's because we do need it.
For this particular person, like Sarah was asking for a Social Security award letter, right, for a child, and basically She just never provided it. And she's like, she had to basically say, this is holding up your closing. You cannot close until I have it. Did you ask for it? Because they're saying they can only mail it. She's saying she couldn't find it. And when we come into, hey, you might have to wait 2 weeks for them to mail this, all of a sudden it got found.
Real quick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Curious how that happens.
It happens, and it's, I guess, like I said, we really, truly only ask for what we have to have, and we want it to be a smooth process, but a lot of communication. If something changes for you, upfront documentation so that we can go behind it is really key right now, to avoid any kind of little bombs later on down the line.
One more thing.
There's one more thing, too, that really affects title that we should talk about, and that's marital status. But ask your question, Pat, and then we'll go to that.
Sarah, everything I hear, all this real distress, are you getting more gray hair from all of this?
I'm going to tell you, this year, the whole year has been surreal. We're fortunate right now in our market that we are as busy as we are. But it's, there are a lot more rules right now. So, yeah, there's gray hair that comes with it.
A lot of stress. I think his wife can fix that. So marital status, Sarah, let's touch on that because that's one thing that people kind of glaze over and they think it's not a big deal. Maybe someone's already split, right? The ex-spouse is somewhere else. They're here in their mind. They're already divorced, but they're not legally divorced. That's a problem.
It's a problem. We're a homestead state. When you enter into a financial transaction on what is your primary residence, your spouse, if not divorced, must acknowledge that you're entering into that transaction.
Meaning they have to sign on that. They're not responsible for it.
Signing the notes. They may not be obligating themselves to the loan, but they have to acknowledge certain documents in the closing package.
And by acknowledge, she means sign a few documents.
Hopefully it's not like a bitter, nasty...
Correct.
Most of them are bitter, nasty.
Yeah.
Well, that's usually how it works, right?
Well, for some, 50% of the relationships, it's an amicable situation. And
I think that number is high, girl. Don't you think 50%? That sounds high.
Define amicable.
One of them dies.
So for you run into the situations where a couple is divorcing and the soon-to-be ex-spouse is more than happy to sign off because maybe the other spouse is departing the residence and needs to establish their own place to live, and so they come up with those agreements to help one another to split their assets. One's going to retain the home and refinance it into their own name. The other's going to move and get their own loan. But maybe their divorce isn't final. We run into those situations. But then there's the other side of the coin where there is no communication. They don't know where the other person is. It's not a good situation. And in those scenarios, someone can't buy a home still legally married unless the other party is willing to acknowledge and, as Katrina said, sign certain documents.
If you got more money, you can buy an investment property. That's okay, but you're not buying it as a primary residence.
Wow.
Correct. We try to explain, they're not going to join on the deed, they're not going to join on the loan, but they do have to acknowledge the mortgage instrument, which is kind of like a deed for a lender, the closing disclosure, and there are various documents that they have to be willing to sign.
All right, Sarah, thanks for joining us today, and we're just about out of time for hour number 1. This is Tampa Home Talk. If your rate is anything near or above 4%, you definitely want to call or text 813-377-2775 and get that checked out. 813-377-2775. Love where you live or we'll fix it. We'll be back for hour number 2.